We are almost a week away from the elections for the Welsh and Scottish Parliaments, as well as councils and 6 mayors across England.
Yeah, we've been speaking to the leaders of each of the major political parties in the run-up to the 7th of May. Today, we're speaking to Reform UK's leader, Nigel Farage, who joins us now from Westminster. Nigel Farage, good morning to you. So we know not long now in England, people will be voting for their local councils. But looking at some of your literature and your campaigning around it, it very much feels like it's about get Starmer out. That's your message in this. And I wonder whether that's misleading to voters, because this isn't a Westminster election, this is a local election.
You know what, the sort of bit of theatre that we had in Parliament yesterday was never going to have an effect. The Labour Party can't get rid, won't get rid of Keir Starmer, the Tories can't. But you know what can? A crushing defeat in Labour's heartlands on May the 7th will see the end of the Prime Minister by midsummer. And that's, yes, one of the key things, not the only thing, one of the key things we've been campaigning on. I genuinely believe that Reform are going to do so well in the Midlands, the North, South Wales, that it will be the end of the Prime Minister. And frankly, you know, I'm of the view that this is the most unpatriotic, un-British, dissembling Prime Minister that the country's ever had.
But isn't that an issue of saying what people may not want rather than what you as Reform UK can offer people? And particularly in local elections, this is about their bin collections, it's about roads, it's about how everything close to them functions. And what you're doing is campaigning on a Westminster issue.
Well, it's a fair question. 2/3 of people say in this election they'll vote that national issues will influence them more than local issues. I get the point you're making. On the local government level, what we're saying is in the English counties, we're fighting local government reorganisation where they want to split up England's historic counties. We don't see an argument for that. We have promised we'll launch judicial reviews in areas where they want to put up monstrous solar farms, where farms ought to be in food production. And we're standing on the record of the 10 councils in which we have majority control from last year, where we have saved hundreds of millions of pounds in cutting unnecessary expenditure and kept our council tax rises lower than the other parties running comparable councils. So it's not as if we're ignoring the local issues, but it is the big national issues on the street, I have to say, that most people talk about.
If you speak to people in Worcestershire, though, their county council, the council tax went up by 9%. So that's my question about what people see.
No. We are not in majority control in Worcestershire. We chose to adopt.
It's a minority administration.
Minority lead, where we can't make decisions without getting the votes of other parties. So Worcestershire's a different case, and frankly, a bankrupt council.
And do you regret getting involved? You've said that on the record before.
There've been one or two interesting conversations between myself and our leadership team in Worcester. I did publicly say I'd rather we left it alone, but hey, they've stepped up, they're doing the best they can. But I quote the 10 where we're clearly in control.
Mr Farage, morning, it's Sarah here. Just looking at the latest count, and 74 Reform councillors elected last year have either resigned, walked away, defected or been expelled or suspended from the party. Do you still have an issue with vetting and selection?
Yeah, I mean, Labour have lost 300 and the Tories have lost 200, so there is a big churn in local government. On vetting, let me say this, that we've put up candidates in 99.9% of elections that are taking place next Thursday. We're pushing 5,000 candidates, and a handful of them we've had problems with, chiefly because they lied to us about their past associations or about social media handles we didn't know about. However, let me say this, we've dealt with all of that. The Conservative Party have had to suspend more candidates than we have. The Greens have had goodness knows problems on a massive scale. Even Plaid in Wales had to suspend one of their candidates for saying some awful thing about underage people. So every party with an election of this scale faces these problems. I would say, compared to years gone by, our vetting is now very, very good. And if all anybody can find is a handful out of 5,000, I think that rather proves the point.
Yeah, you're absolutely right to say that Labour and Conservative have lost a higher number than Reform UK have. But Reform UK has lost a higher proportion. And if you just look at some of the high-profile cases, Chris Parry put forward to stand at Hampshire and Solent's first mayor. That was a big position. He was suspended over comments about a Jewish group, which I know you've come out and apologised for. Former Staffordshire County Council Ian Cooper had his party membership revoked when he was accused of racially abusing public figures online. Does it worry you as a party leader that your party is attracting these sort of people?
No, because it's happening to all the other parties as well. You know, some of the comments from Conservative candidates are literally unspeakable as well. Look, it is difficult. It is difficult to get huge numbers of people together and to find one or two that don't say offensive things. But it doesn't reflect the party as a whole. I mean, look, you know, even in the last general election, when we weren't particularly mature as an organisation, we had more voters from the black and ethnic minorities than the Liberal Democrats. And if you look across our list of candidates, we've got people from all backgrounds, all walks of life, standing for us. So, yeah, you get one or two people say things that you find offensive, doesn't reflect the party as a whole. And right across politics, this has always been a problem. And I think with social media now, it always will be.
One of the big issues on the doorsteps for voters, of course, is the cost of living crisis as well, and bringing down prices as inflation continues to rise. I think energy prices, one of the biggest drivers of that, I think expected to rise by about 24% by the end of the year. That, by and large, caused by your friend and ally, Donald Trump. And I wonder, when you look at these elections, who is most dangerous for global stability right now? Is it President Trump or President Putin?
Putin invaded Ukraine. I had no influence over that. Trump and Israel bombed Iran. I had no influence over that. What I do have influence on is what we do with energy policy. And let us be clear, if we were producing our own oil, and particularly gas, in this country, prices of domestic heating, industrial energy prices would be far lower, and diesel at the pumps, if we were producing our own and refining our own in this country, which we can't do because of energy costs, would be cheaper. The best way to cut the cost of living is to become self-sufficient in energy and all of its byproducts through reopening, refining, and all of those things that we need. And right now we're facing potential shortages of helium, of many other products that could even add to the NHS waiting list when we would be perfectly capable of doing all of that ourselves at home. And I'm afraid the net zero policy brought in by the Conservatives, maybe with the best of motives, but now being carried on by Ed Miliband with almost religious fervour, is adding to the cost of living and endangering our national security. And I think this is one of the key policy area differences of us and the other parties in Westminster.
That's not entirely true, that if we reopen North Sea fields, it's not a case that that oil would then flow to the UK. I think 80% or so of it is sold on international markets at the international rate. So it doesn't make it cheaper for the UK.
I did say especially gas. With gas, there is a massive transportation cost. You know, the gas comes from, most of our gas now comes from Montana in the Midwest. It's taken out of the ground, liquefied, brought across the Atlantic, regassed and used. That is a massive premium on what the spot price of gas, and that varies anyway, would be. Producing our own gas at home would give us cheaper household bills, significantly cheaper household bills, and give us a chance to reindustrialise Britain. And the irony of all this is, we're deindustrialising our towns and our ports, and we're industrialising the countryside by filling it up with solar farms and pylons coming in from the North Sea and elsewhere. We've got this all the wrong way round, albeit I grant you originally with the best of intentions.
Do you accept my point on oil though? Because we know that it's oil prices and therefore fuel that is pushing up prices for so many things, be it petrol or anything that is transported around the country.
Do you know why we're exporting so much oil? Because our refining capacity has gone to virtually zero. You know, Grangemouth is on the verge of closing in Scotland. And the reason our refineries are closing is our industrial energy price is the highest in the world. It's double France. It's 4 to 5 times that of America. It's 8 times higher than the Middle East. That's why we export the oil. We don't actually have the ability to take the oil and turn it into the products we need in this country. And that leads on to plastics, to chemicals, to all of these things that come out of oil originally. We've literally given up the ghost on all of this. And frankly, the Labour and Conservative governments have been silent on this. They're believing that by importing all these goods back in from India, we're somehow saving the planet. We're not. All we've done is to export CO2 emissions at massive cost to British industry and to household consumers' bills. And I feel very strongly that this is one area where both parties have got this completely wrong, and Reform is offering a radical, sensible, much needed, indeed vital for national security solution.
Mr. Farage, we are coming to the end of our time. I did want to ask before we leave it, looking ahead to the elections next week, there is a lot more choice perhaps for the voter than there would have been in previous years. A lot more parties on the ballot paper. If you want governance in the UK to move back towards the right, can you see a world in which you would be happy for coalitions with a Conservative Party to harness that group of people?
Well, it doesn't strike me as being highly desirable on the basis that I don't really trust them after what they did, especially in the last 5 years in government. All I can say is let's see. We've got this big set of elections on the 7th of May next week. They're the biggest test we're going to have between now and the general election. And without getting overexcited, I think you're going to see results for reform in the north of England, the Midlands, South Wales, that are going to surprise everybody and probably end the career of Keir Starmer.
The two personalities in politics that people are probably talking about these days are you, Mr. Farage, and also Zach Palansky. Both of you have done similar things in terms of attracting new members to your parties, but obviously at very different ends of the political spectrum. Many people would like to see you debate because you've got so many differences, directly debate your policies, would you do that? Would you agree to directly debate with Zach Palansky?
Well, I think all he wants is a great big row. So I'm not sure there's any upside of that. But look, tell you what, I've been on the road now for 8 weeks. This is my first day back in London for goodness knows how long. I'm back on the road for another week. Let's see how the results are. I believe something really big is going to happen, and I'll think about it hard. I promise you after that.
Nigel Farage, leader of Reform UK, thank you for joining us.
It is just before 8:45 to 9.